know what we're doing? How do we know we're being successful at all? That's where goals and measurements come in. So I'm a believer that there are three key goals every nonprofit should be measuring when it comes to fundraising success: dollars raised, number of meetings, and donor retention rate. Dollars raised is the most straightforward, and it's probably doesn't require a lot of explanation, but just so we're all clear, you should be able to report out how much money you have raised at a given amount in time. Like our year-to-date dollars, versus our year-to-date budget. We wanted to raise 1 million, we've raised 2 million. How great are we? How happy are we? You should also be able to break down those dollars by, say, date or by program. Oh, how many donors gave to the food bank program versus the after school education program? How much money was received in January versus February? That is all database functionality. But at the core, the very heart, if you had to pick one thing, what was our goal? What's our goal to date? What's our fundraising? How much have we raised to date? That really shows the direct activity of or the direct result, rather, of our solicitation activities. The number of meetings. So this is I won't say controversial, but it's a little bit of an involved metric. When I was working with a fund development committee of a board, when I first started working with this board, the only metric they looked at was an accounting report of dollars raised, by category, by month, looking back the last month. And it was hard to move forward from that. And what we started doing is measuring the number of meetings that the fund development team was holding any given month. So what that is doing, it's showing the activity that has to happen before the gifts are received. Right? No gifts happen. Well, some gifts just happen out of the blue, right? But that's a whole nother conversation. For the most part, gifts happen because we make them happen. Gifts happen because we are creating opportunities and creating the environment where donors can give. So showing your leadership team, like your boss and your board, showing them the number of meetings your team are doing and the number of meetings that you are doing helps tell the story that fundraising is not a transactional activity where things just happen as if by magic. It is something that takes work and strategy and focus. So in order to measure this, you have to do a couple things. First, you have to make sure you have a system by which you can record these meetings. Again, back to CRM, your database should have an opportunity for you to record these meetings. And you or whoever is responsible for pulling this number should know exactly how to do that, whether it's monthly or quarterly. Click a button and see by staff member how many meetings were successfully concluded. The second thing you need is a clear definition of what do we mean when we say meeting. And here's an example. I would use these two examples when I was telling my team how to think about this. If you are a fundraising professional and you go to an event, let's say you go to a state of the city luncheon for whatever city you're in, and you're sitting at a 10 top table, and you end up sitting next to someone who's the vice president at a local bank, and you exchange pleasantries, exchange cards, you have a little chat, but obviously you don't get a chance to dive deep because there's other people at the table. You have to kind of pay attention to the speaker and whatnot. I wouldn't consider that a meeting. What I would consider is the fact that you call that VP the next day and say, "Hey, I really enjoyed meeting. Let's continue our conversation," and you have that one-on-one conversation. That's a meeting. Another way to look at it would be, at the conclusion of this meeting, have you learned something about the donor? Have you furthered or deepened the relationship they have with the organization? And does it rise to the level of, yeah, I've got to tell my boss about this? Again, if you see somebody at an event and you just talk about how they're doing and it's a real quick thing, you wouldn't go back to your boss and say, "Oh, boss, guess what? I saw the VP of the bank, and turns out her kid really loves third grade, and my kid hated third grade. We had a good laugh. We moved on." Of course not. That's not what we're here for. But conversation, hey, we learned about the bank's grant program, and we learned that she used to volunteer with a nonprofit just like ours, and she's interested in board leadership. Whatever it is, that kind of substance matters. Also, I use the word meeting, but it can be face-to-face, it can be Zoom. I'd allow for meaningful email or phone conversations, but they have to be really well documented. really, really make the case that it's true. Because you don't want someone being like, well, I got to hit my meeting number, so I'm going to send out 17 emails and count them. Obviously, we don't want to do that. So every staff member should have a meeting goal tied to them. Um, in terms of how to set that meeting goal, look at what they've done in the past. Look at your calendars. Be like, well, it looks like you're getting about 3 or 4 meetings a month. So let's challenge you and say, I want you to get 5 meetings a month, and that's your goal. And we measure your progress every month. Finally, donor retention rate. Again, very critical goal. It talks about how many donors are staying with you, how many give that second gift, give that third gift. A lot of CRMs will calculate this for you, which is awesome. It's probably something you should look at quarterly. It probably doesn't because the month. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about where you are in a given month. I'd want to see what it is for a full year. But everyone has a stake in that. And if your nonprofit is not retaining donors, it is a very serious problem, because it tells me that you're really good at getting people in the door, but you're bad at keeping them. You're bad at thanking them, at showing them their impact, and engaging them again. And you're either not asking again, or they're not interested, both of which are significant problems you need to dig into.